Hello everyone, welcome to our today's session on scaling strategies for social ventures, which is offered by our MOOC course in our 7th week, week 4. And by the end of this particular course, you would try to find out and learn new aspects where we would be covering the social enterprises, its challenges, and its funding and governance, which shapes their operations. Today, a focus on a question that lies at the heart of social entrepreneurship, that is, how can a social impact be expanded without losing purpose, quality, and integrity? So, in commercial business, scaling is often synonymous with the growth in revenue, customers, or market share. In social ventures, however, scaling is far more complex. So, it involves not only increasing the reach but also safeguarding the missions, adapting to the context, and navigating ethical trade offs. Therefore, this session examines what scaling really means for the social ventures, the models through which the scaling happens, and the leaders who make strategic choices and make the attempt to grow the impact responsibly. So let me take you to the section 1, wherein it tries to cover what does scaling mean in social entrepreneurship. So let us try to understand here. Scaling in social entrepreneurship refers to increasing positive social impact, not merely just expanding the organizational size. As this distinction is crucial because a social venture can grow larger without creating a deeper or broader impact. Conversely, the impact can scale even when the organization remains small. How is a useful way to understand this is through the out up deal model, which is a model of scaling which captures three distinctive but complementary dimensions. So let us try to understand further in covering up little more in the next section. These three dimensions of scale out, up and deep model is consisting of expanding reach. First one, then scaling out focuses on reaching more beneficiaries or geographies by replicating an existing model. So, this is a most visible form of scaling and often it involves the following things such as it includes geographic expansion, it also includes increasing service capacity, it also includes replication programs. So, for this, let me give you an example. A mobile health initiative that begins in one urban cluster and expands to multiple cities by developing identical service units. So, the scaling out works best when certain situation in the following event happens. That is, the intervention is standardized, the outcomes should be predictable, the quality can be monitored at scale. However, scaling out often exposes social venture to operational strain, quality dilution, and rising cost. So, therefore, we come to understanding that scaling up means it is influential systems because scaling up refers to changing of policies, institutions, or markets and so on that impact becomes embedded within the larger systems rather than delivering these services directly to the organization. So let us understand how the organization influences. It influences where it includes the government programs, it includes the regulatory frameworks, it also includes the various industry standards. So let me tell an example here that is a pilot nutrition program whose evidence lead to the state government to integrate the model into public health delivery. So what does scaling do here? The scaling often takes up a longer and it requires the following information, that is evidence generation, policy engagement, and there is also a requirement of coalition building. So, yet when it is successful, it creates a structural impact far beyond what a single organization that could have delivered. Also, another point that we need to remember here is scaling deep. It means changing the mindset and behaviors. The scaling deep focuses on transforming the norms, relationships, and behaviors within the community. For this, what we can do is, this is a form of a scale where it includes the intangible aspect. It also understands the slow and also finds difficult to measure. So example, a gender equality initiative that reshapes the attitude towards the girls' education and household decision making over several years. So what does scaling deep do here? The scaling deep is something which is critical for sustainability because lasting social change requires internalized transformation and it is not just the service delivery. So this is the overview of the same. Now let me take you for the next section, that is replication versus adaptation, a core scaling trade-off. Once a social venture decides to scale, they must choose how to scale, and one of the most important strategic decision involves the balance between replication and the adaptation, for which what we could do is the replication model, because the replication model emphasizes the following information, which is it includes standardized processes, it uses uniform delivery systems, it also uses centralized control system. That's why this model is very effective when the services are technical or product based. It also becomes very effective if the quality must be tightly controlled. So let me take an example here. Low cost medical devices distributed throughout any standardized hospitals partnership across the multiple region. So here the model performs is the replication model enables the speed and efficiency, but the risk of losing relevance in diverse social context could be more possible. So let me talk about another model here, that is adaptation model. Now let me also tell this adaptation model has certain emphasis which includes local customization, it provides context sensitivity design, it also provides decentralized decision making. So this model is very essential and successful when it has problems which are socially embedded especially. It also consists of community engagement when it is central and epic. So for this one example, that is livelihood programs tailored for local skill resources and market conditions. So what does the adaptation model do here? The adaptation improves the relevance and the trust but slows down the expansion and increases the coordination but also complexity. So most successful social ventures adopt a structured, flexible, combining standard core principle with adaptable delivery mechanism. So let me take you to the next section as well, that is organization readiness for scaling. So it means the scaling magnifies not only the strength but also weaknesses. Therefore, readiness actually matters. So one practical example that I will give you relating to readiness model which also considers four dimensions. First, the program stability. It means it is intervention proven. It also asks, are the outcomes consistent over pilots? It also understands under leadership depth, that is, can the organization function without the founder getting involved in daily decisions? There's a third aspect to be considered in this is systems and processes, which gives a rise to question, are finance, HR and monitoring system scalable? Another criteria is cultural and values, which consist of, are the mission's ethics clearly articulated and practiced? For this, let me give you an example. Several promising social ventures struggled during the expansion because informal system that worked at a small scale failed under complexity. So, the lesson is clear for all of us. Scaling is prematurely often leads to the mission drift and operational breakdown. The next section that I would be discussing here is partnership based scaling models. Not all social ventures scale by their growing but their own footprint. Many scale impact through the partnership. That's why we have another model which is called as franchise model. In this, the central organization defines the standards while other all local partners need to implement. So let me give an example here. A skill training program delivered through certified local partners using the curricula and assessment method could also be one of the effective model that could be implemented. We have another model which is called capacity building model. In this, the organization trains to replicate the impact independently on their own. So, one example for this, an organization developing teachers training methods that are adopted by schools and NGOs nationwide. That also could be a possible effective model. The next one, we also have another model which is called open source and knowledge sharing model, which consists of tools, frameworks and curricula that are shared freely. Example, a digital governance tools that are made available to municipalities and non-profit organization. And what does it do is partnership based scaling. It reduces the capital requirement while increasing reach, but requires strong quality assurance mechanism. This could be effective model. Let me take you to the next section, that is technology enabled scaling. Technology offers social ventures that possibly of a non-linear scale where the impact increases faster than the cost. So let me tell one model, that is platform model. Here the organization creates infrastructure that connects users, providers and partners in one platform. Let me take an example here, a digital platform connecting the small farmers with the buyers, advisory services and any other logistic provider. So one of the again very essential model, that is also called as hybrid tech human model. So in this, the technology supports but does not replace human engagement. Let me take an example here, that is mobile based learning supplemented by community facilitators. While technology enables efficiency, over reliance can also exclude a population with limited digital access. Now, yet effective model again. Now, next one, we have the next section, very important and crucial, that is funding and scaling alignment. How do we go about? The scaling strategies are shaped for our funding sources. How could we do is using the following points. The grant funded scaling supports experimentation and inclusion. It also consists of investment backed scaling emphasis efficiency and revenue. It also consists of blended finance, allows the phased growth over a span period of time. So let me take an example for this. An environmental enterprises uses grants to refine its technology and impact investment to build their infrastructure and community funding to pilot local applications. So in case if there's any misalignment between funding expectation and scaling strategy, it is a major cause of failure. Let me also put a highlight on the other section, that is ethical consideration in scaling and also introducing the ethical dilemmas. Very much important for us to know. We need to ask certain questions, that is who gets to serve first? Does the affordability change? Another question, are the community voices weakened? So, an ethical scaling framework includes all of these possible solution come answers. It must include mission protection in governance, transparent beneficiary selection. It also have to have structured proper feedback mechanisms. It must consist of independent oversight, because ethical scaling requires an intentional design, not a reactive decisions. Let me also cover another point, that is another section, when not to scale. Here, some social problems do not lend themselves to direct scaling because highly contextual, relationship intensive intervention may scale better than what it was. But it should consist of following strategies. It should have policy influence. It should consist of research dissemination. It also must consist of training practitioners. So again, let me take an example here. Conflict mediation initiatives often scale influence rather than operations because the restraints can be strategic choice but not a failure at all. Then there's another section that I need to cover here is common scaling failures. Why actually the scaling fail and what are certain common failure patterns that we can understand. Those are following things such as first one, expanding too much fast. Second, it includes scaling because funding is available, and over centralizing the decision making could also be another error, and ignoring the frontline feedback. So, these failures underscore the importance of discipline and reflection. So, let me conclude the overall summary of the session. To conclude, the scaling is social venture is not about becoming bigger, it's about becoming more impactful, more resilient and more important, effective. Because effective scaling requires the following points. That is, it must have clarity on what kind of scale it matters. Alignment between mission, model and money has to be there. It also should have organization readiness, and most importantly it should have ethical valence. Okay, and apart from that, as future managers or a policy makers and or a social innovators, your responsibility is not merely to ask can this scale, but rather your question should be should it scale, how should it scale and at what cost. Therefore, in the next session, we will explore the governance, accountability and very important mechanism that helps the social venture remains mission aligned as they grow. Thank you for your attention and joining for the session.